You know what? You got to protect the player from himself. And I had a simple philosophy as a coach. I treated every one of my players like they were my son. And that's all you have to do. And I can tell you this, all right? Would you put your son back in that game when you saw it? Forget this back and ankle BS that we heard about. This is clearly from head trauma. That's it, a concussion. I know what it looks like. We all know what it looks like, all right? My answer is this. No way in hell I put my son back in that game. No way in hell. And you know what? No way in hell I put somebody else's son back out there either. Yeah. This is an epic fail, and it's a fail on the coach, too.
Why would the media do this to Tua Tagovailoa? It's been a week since Tua went down against the Cincinnati Bengals in the Amazon primetime Thursday night game of the week. And since that game, a number of players have experienced concussions and have been cleared to play. But for some reason, the Tua Tagovailoa concussion is top of mind for all sports journos. I had to check my notes, but I did confirm that Tua isn't the only player in the NFL to experience a concussion this year. In fact, if their conjecture is true about the Buffalo Bills game injury, which it's not, he's not even the only player to receive 2 concussions this year. But in the last week, we've heard a number of these nutjobs calling for Tua Tagovailoa to retire. You have to wonder how many times they've called for the retirement of Joe Burrow since it's been released that he's had a ton of concussions, he's blacked out, and still played games. And this week's QB1 for the Miami Dolphins, Teddy Bridgewater, must really make their heads spin, if they remember. You have to wonder, how many of them can remember this when Teddy Bridgewater was carted off the field on a stretcher for a concussion? But Teddy was never given the gold watch in the condo at Del Boca Vista and told to, ride off into the sunset. Why not? I have no idea. And as you just saw, Rex Ryan went completely ballistic about Tua Tagovailoa. He even blamed Mike McDaniel. You see, Rex Ryan has been a coach for 40 years and he would never put any player in harm's way. Never. Really? You can only imagine how many players got concussions in Rex Ryan's 40-year NFL career. And I wonder how many of those he told they should retire. Hey Rex, I got a couple questions for you since you treat all players like they're your sons. Why did you put Tim Tebow into a game when he had 2 broken ribs? Would you force your own kids to play a football game if they had 2 broken ribs? And why did you put Mark Sanchez into a preseason game, a meaningless preseason game in the 4th quarter where he tore up his shoulder and had a season-ending injury? And then since you're accusing Mike McDaniel, then after Sanchez got hurt, why did you lie to the media day after day saying Sanchez was a day-to-day decision when you knew he had a potential career-ending injury? I'm confused. Since you purport to be this great dad and you would treat every player like your son, it's really, really disconcerting. I don't know, but I'm betting that Tim Tebow and Mark Sanchez wouldn't be considering you a candidate for Dad of the Year. And then we come to Teddy Bruschi.
Mike McDaniel, he's the hot new young head coach. He's got all the information. He's got all the shifts and formations. He says cool things, wear cool clothes, but he just doesn't have the experience yet. He's young. He doesn't have the guts yet to have the experience to say I'm going to assume that they told him it was back. And they told him it was ankle before he went in. So I'm sort of giving Mike McDaniel the benefit of the doubt for Sunday. And that's where a coach like you, a coach like Harbaugh would look at that doctor and say, did you see what I just saw? Get out my face, the kid's not playing. That's where the head coach come in, and that's where coaches like Rex Ryan and John Harbaugh and other coaches would have done that. So
Teddy Bruschi played for the New England Patriots. Did you know after one of the Super Bowl victories, Teddy Bruschi had a stroke? A friggin' stroke. Did he retire? Hell no. He came back to play before he had yet another stroke. Didn't retire. Nobody told him to get off the field. A stroke victim was welcomed back to the league by the New England Patriots and nobody said a thing. It was courageous. Do they not think that people remember these things? Hey Teddy and Ryan, get the out of here. Some of these pundits look like they're auditioning for a role in a Broadway play because they're really acting. They're hoping to God that nobody looks behind the curtain or uses Google. Then there's Mark Schlereth, former offensive lineman for the Denver Broncos and a couple other teams, and he's making the rounds on talk shows saying that Tua needs to retire for his own good. This is from a guy who said this.
Here's what I would tell you about Tua.
If the Miami Dolphins were really smart and wanted to win some of the public relations battle, they'd put him on IR right now for 4 weeks.
But here's the deal. From a medical standpoint, somebody has to be the freaking adult. And players want to play. That's what we do. Over the course of my career, I had 29 surgeries. I had a surgery on a Sunday night. I got out of the operating room at about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I checked myself out of hospital at 11 o'clock the next morning, and I drove to the stadium and played a Monday Night Football game. So at some point, the medical profession actually has to be the medical profession. And they have to be the adults. They have to protect the players. You know, I hope that the Tua situation is a catalytic event that promotes change. I don't know that it will be, but I hope that it is.
I just love how these guys are saying that Tua Tagovailoa is not adult enough to be making his own decisions. And this from a guy who said he checked out of the hospital on his own, made his own decision, took a cab over to the stadium, went into the locker room right after having surgery, and played the game on Monday Night Football. Can you get more hypocritical than this crap? Can you believe what these guys are saying about Tua given their history? Now, maybe they are being compassionate and they're hoping to impart some wisdom upon Tua so he doesn't make the same mistakes that they did. But I'm not buying that whatsoever. Why? Because none of these guys have said the same thing about any other player who's received a concussion or 2 concussions or, had a heart defibrillation. As I said in my last video, JJ Watt had a heart defibrillation on Wednesday and played in Sunday's game, and nobody said he should retire. Somebody make sense of this. It just seems way too odd that Tua Tagovailoa is in the crosshairs of seemingly everybody in the sports media. I keep talking about it myself because I've never seen anything like this ever before in sports. So let me ask you, have you ever seen the sports media have it in for somebody so much, putting out the full court press like they're doing against Tua Tagovailoa? But luckily, as Barry Jackson wrote in his last article, Tua doesn't hear any of this nonsense. In one of his recent articles, Nick Hicks, who is Tua's trainer, was asked how Tua is responding to all this commentary and negativity in the sports media. The response? Well, Tua doesn't have Twitter, Tua doesn't have Instagram, and Tua doesn't even have cable TV, so he doesn't even hear it. And yet people are questioning Tua's decision-making ability. That sounds like a really sound decision to me. The media obviously is in an all-out, full-court press to either get the Dolphins to bench Tua or to get Tua to wise up and retire. But at least one former NFL player and Hall of Famer has had enough himself. Listen to this.
I felt like everybody was placing this on Coach McDaniel, and I thought that was totally unfair. Totally unfair. This is a first-year coach who has come in and has done an incredible job with the football team by putting players in position to win and using their gifts and their talents. And we had a very unfortunate situation. For people to start questioning this man's character, he has nothing in his history that says he has anything anywhere would put anybody in harm's way like this. For us to start putting it on him, where he has to sit up here and describe his intimate relationship and how close him and Tua is, so we can try to believe his reasoning behind playing Tua. I thought that was too far. I thought that was wrong. But we were absolutely out of line and pushing this upon Coach McDaniel. This is a young man who just got in the league, and to put this on him and he hadn't earned it, I thought was wrong. And I actually thought it was some jealousy by some of the other people in the league of his success. And I heard people say, I haven't seen anything like this in 40 years. Stop lying. 12 years we've had this protocol in place. Before that, we used to watch people get knocked out, go over to the bench, me, myself, take smelling salt and go back in the game. The hyperbole to try to make him look even worse is what I did not like. I thought they were wrong for doing that.
Michael Irvin is 100% right. Almost every one of us who have played football has had our bell rung. Some worse than others, but enough is enough. This is football. It's a man's game. And I'm over the cucks in the media who are seemingly trying to emasculate men or do some sort of forced sterilization and get guys to become beta males. I don't want to see anyone hurt. I definitely don't want to see anyone have long-term complications from their football injuries. But enough is enough. You got to stop saying that men don't have the capacity to make a sound decision, that they can't look out for themselves, that they're basically helpless. That's insane. Whether good or bad, I will never advocate for the mob, especially on Twitter, and definitely not sports journals, to make medical decisions over my life. And I don't advocate them doing it over Tua Tagovailoa's life either. The sick focus on Tua's injury needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. Tua is a grown-ass man. He knows who he can trust, and he doesn't need Twitter or the sports journals out there telling him what's in his best interest. It's actually insulting to hear this crap day in and day out, especially when we know most of these sports journals, especially the players, are full of shit and just getting paid to say what they're saying. So can we finally get on with this week and look at the game ahead? We got to beat the Jets. We got to go to 4-1. Don't forget to join me this Sunday at 12:30 as I broadcast the game with the Miami Dolphins versus the New York Jets. Love to have you aboard. Talk to you soon. Fins up, and these guys are nuts.
Is anybody catching on to this Barry guy?